Welcome to Hope on the Rise. My name is Peter Englert. I am here with my friend, Bob Roden. And our last episode was with Scott Savage. And he ended it by saying that his wife, Judge Danilyn Savage, had just become a judge. And Bob, today we're with a judge, Rob MacDonald. What do you think?
It's just awesome to welcome the judge to be with us today, and we've been friends for years, and I was so pleased when he agreed to come on. So, welcome, Judge MacDonald, to Hope on the Rise podcast.
Doc,
We're going
thank you
to
so much. Thank you as well, Peter. Thank you very much.
and I know that you're on the bench from 9 to 3 every day, typically, sometimes longer, and so you've made this time for us. It was really interesting about the podcast last month where our guest talked about his wife being a judge, and so here we are today with an actual judge. This is pretty cool. So the way you and I met, Judge, was you were in law school at the University of Richmond, and you would attend the church where I pastored there, I guess from time to time when you're in town. So tell us what you sort of envisioned when you were in high school and planning. Here you are in law school. Did you ever think you would be a judge?
It was very clear to me as far as my growing up years. I was so blessed as far as my heritage, and Daddy worked at the shipyard, and we attended Glad Tidings Assemblies of God Church my entire life, and have so much to be thankful for there. I knew at a very early age that there was a call on my life to serve the Lord in a particular and a unique way. I thought very clearly that was in ministry and to serve as a pastor. I had planned to go to undergraduate school and then to seminary and go from there. I'll never forget when I was attending Virginia Wesleyan College right there on the steps. In my second year of college, it was not necessarily an audible voice, but just a clear impression that I would go to law school. And that was a complete change. Throughout my history, I could share with you, time doesn't permit, whether it be in the fourth grade when the Lord touched my brain and radically transformed my ability to process. I could even go back younger when the Lord healed my lungs at the age of 6 months, and here I am today, living and breathing. I could share with you many stories of how I know that where I am today is certainly we work hard, but I've been blessed by doors that have been opened by the Lord himself and by the opportunities that others have given to me. I had initially desired, quite candidly, not to go to the University of Richmond. My desire was to go to William and Mary. My grades and scores all put me on that trajectory, and I was placed on the waiting list. And I remember going to my father and saying, "Hey, Dad, as time grew near, we need to pray that I get into William and Mary," because I lived in Norfolk, Virginia Beach. So it was a commute. I could still live at home. I had a successful video business. And back in 1986, that was different than it is now. 3/4-inch tape. Peter, you don't even know what that means. With that being said, the Lord did not allow me to go to William and Mary, but to a private school. Richmond. Didn't know where those funds were going to come from, didn't know why, but I can tell you, as far as with great confidence, that is where the Lord had intended me to go. Funny story, I had no place to go, had no place to live, and so we had some dear friends, and one of your friends as well, Admiral Clark and his wife. He had a sister who lived in Richmond with her husband, and he says, "Well, maybe you can stay in one of the rooms in her house." And so that's where I stayed the first semester, because I was so confident I wasn't going to the University of Richmond, but so glad that I did. And I'm here today occupying this space and place because of that trajectory. And so during those times at William and at Richmond, that's where we had the opportunity to attend West End, and where Dr. Roden was the pastor. And those, especially the first year of law school, it's very transformational. So where does what's transformation? That's a breaking and a tearing down. You go in with great confidence and great success. They crush that, they destroy that as they reform and rework. And so it's an opportunity certainly to be near to God, because you're on your knees seeking God's presence in that process. But Doc, you every Sunday you would speak with such clarity and a gift of brevity, but with clarity, just the way they teach us to write in law school. And it was almost with like laser like surgery that you delivered the word of God, and with such power, and in such a unique time in my life where I was utterly dependent on that, and I could retain those messages not just throughout the week but throughout the semester. So I didn't know you. I had, obviously your reputation had preceded you growing up in the AG in the Potomac District, but just to sit under your ministry in a unique capacity, so not necessarily engaged in the church because of my position in the law school, but sitting at the table. And so, Doc, I remain grateful to you for those very important years.
I remember learning later on that you, when I learned you attended West End, you're in law school. One day I said to you, that we have a theory: a good sermon does not need to be long, and a bad one shouldn't be. So it was just refreshing to talk with you, and as an attorney, when you had graduated from school, and then you started doing some substitute on the bench for, I guess, about 1997 or so, and then were appointed to you were appointed to be a district to the district court, and now you're appointed to the circuit court. You've had quite a journey. I am so thankful for people of faith like you, Judge, who have a framework that you operate from, and it has influenced you and how you serve. And maybe you could just talk a little bit about what led you to think about this behavior health docket that you put together, and then how that's influenced the entire court system that you've been a part of.
I had the pleasure of serving in private practice for 25 years and now on the bench for 6 years in the district court, 3 years now in the circuit court. When I first arrived on the district court, it's the court in Virginia. It is the court of volume. And so you see hundreds of cases every day, hundreds of cases on the docket of our 4 judges that were down there. We have the civil below $50,000. We have traffic, and we have criminal only as it relates to misdemeanors and or only for the purposes of felonies, probable cause. And very quickly, you step into this arena where every day you look straight into the face of need. And I'll never forget, one of my colleagues, a fellow judge, came off of the bench and he says, we need to do something. And he was referring to a woman who was before the court, and the circumstances that brought her to the court were one thing, but it was the tip of the iceberg, and the situation was much, much larger. Our resources, obviously, when you're doing so many cases, as it's designed to do in a day, obviously the volume nowhere compares at the circuit court, but it's meant to go quickly. But at the same time, you have people that you are dealing with. I'll often tell jurors that I do my very best to not refer to what we do as the judicial system, I find that word incredibly offensive when we start talking about systems, because we're talking about people, we're talking about issues, we're talking about justice, and if I jam that into a system, it just doesn't seem to appropriately fit. So I like to refer to it as the pursuit of justice, to make sure that we never lose the sensitivity of what we're dealing with. Every day we have docket and docket numbers, and we deal with lots of numbers, but every number is a person. It was out of that that we just began to ask some right questions, ask new questions, ask different questions. And I think, Doc, that's one thing that I always appreciate about your ability to, whether it's preaching or whether you're speaking or whether you're teaching or whether you're writing, the key is to ask the right question. I think our educational system is a bit flawed because we focus more on the answer as opposed to the question. The question is what is essential. If I ask the wrong question, it doesn't matter what the answer is. It's essential that I ask the question, then the next question. So we began to ask those questions. And what I found, so blessed, so fortunate here in the city of Chesapeake, because there was a host of folks that were ready, willing, and able to deploy a new approach. We had been given a direct mandate from the legislators that we were not allowed to create a new docket, that the legislators create the new court. I apologize. We're not allowed to create a new court. Only the legislator creates the courts. But there was a possibility of considering a docket. Back in 2016 and 2017, as we began to approach this question, we met with folks that would make decisions and folks that the legislator, and we said, if this is not a good idea to you, then it's not a good idea to us. But we believe that we can take the current resources that we have and bring them to a central place, the court, where the people are, where the need is present, where we can see the need. The need is present, and we have an ability and a space and a place to address that circumstance and take the resources that are available in our city and apply them directly to this individual. That idea was wholeheartedly embraced by those in the House, those in the Senate, both on the right, both the left, Democrats, Republicans. Obviously, as judge, we're nonpartisan. We don't do that in Virginia. We're not elected, and we are appointed by those individuals. But we had a full affirmation, even though the entirety of the legislature, there was some strong resistance at the time. Our local legislators gave that affirmation. And so we began to move up a hill with some resistance, not locally, to the contrary, with great support. As one of the legislators said at one of our first graduations, he said, I was simply the band leader to an incredible orchestra. And that was true. But what this docket did, is it took individuals that were interested in participating who had been diagnosed with a serious mental illness. And whether they'd been, it would be charged with a misdemeanor or where there was a felony offense with the consent of the Commonwealth. And we would invite them into this docket if they qualified and if they consented. It had to be by consent, their petition, their participation for 1 year. And we would meet with them every other week. We would walk with them in this journey. And that ability just to say, hey, we will walk with you during this 1 year, and we will ensure that every resource that we have available will be supplied to you, and we'll hold you accountable, but we're also going to walk with you and applaud your successes. The response to that was tremendous. I learned a great deal. It was difficult to sort of get the doors open. Having come from private practice, having my own firm, and being very blessed, I was used to signing the check. So we do it the way I say, and it's just, this is how it'll happen. And when you're a part of a larger governmental structure, I'm not signing the checks, and I've got to make sure that this large ship is that we're all together, and that the team and every individual was important to the success of the mission. So I had to have everyone's cooperation, I had everyone's buy-in, everyone knowing what that vision was, and then all of us working together to accomplish that vision, It's brand new, so we're ever adopting and responding to things that are working, things that aren't working. But the thing that was most incredible, I guess, is that opportunity to finally, as we stared in the face of need, to deliver, to present hope, to bring that hope day in and day out. That hope was demonstrated by the fact that, number one, it's about identification. And again, this is in the legal system, but within a real sense, there's a lot of false identification. But let's identify who you are and who you are not, and the purpose of this. And we are with you, and we are for you. Your success equals our success. So we're in it for you, and we're in it for us. Number two is that fact that we are with you. And when individuals knew that someone was walking with them and for them, transformation took place. Now, transformation along even with family members who had walked years with these folks in some cases and were exhausted and depleted with resources and had nothing else to do. We inspired them to come back to the table. Number two, we're with you in the fact that we're not going to leave you. A lot of these people, Doc, these folks, many of these folks, had never, ever had anyone that was just with them for the purposes of using them, with them for the purposes of abusing them, with them for the purposes of taking something from them, for lots of different reasons. But our motive was to be with them for their benefit.
Mm.
This is absolutely amazing in the here in the judicial system that you've been able to implement this, and I know that it goes back to the fact that you're linked to you're a person of faith. You want to give people hope, and you want to help them. How awesome is that? Pretty neat idea, huh, Peter? That and how wonderful to meet someone, our judicial system, who is who's doing this. I know that your mind's got to be twirling with some thoughts about this.
Yeah. My wife's a mental health counselor, so I think she'd just appreciate all the work that you're doing. So thank you so much. I want to pivot a little bit, Judge MacDonald. There's a lot of anxiety about the election. There's a lot of anxiety about politics. I know that you talked about justice as opposed to the judicial system. What's a piece of hope that you want to give individuals in this time of uncertainty from the chair that you sit?
From the chair with which I sit, I have great confidence in our United States Constitution. I have great confidence in the rule of law. I have great confidence day in and day out for those who participate in paying that daily price that is extracted and is required in that pursuit of justice. Not from the seat that the seat that I sit in as a judge, but just as an individual. When you talk about, so what is constant? What remains? And so last name MacDonald, and on a family crest, it says our hope remains constant in thee. And so what are the constants? The constants that we have are the fact that we serve a living hope. And that living hope has made residence in whom we are and dwells in us by the power of the Holy Spirit. That same power that raised Christ from the dead. That's the constant, that he made us in his very image, in the likeness of his image. And someone said to me several years ago, and it's become part of my mantra, is, look at, especially even as a defense lawyer, never did the prosecution, but was always in private practice on the defense side. But look at folks long enough until you see yourself. You'll find some portion of yourself. A lot of times we can think, well, that's not me. But I sat down with an individual who'd been charged with double murder. He was a man, a military police officer. He had all the conduct stripes on his sleeve and had lived an exemplary life and was appointed by the court to represent him. And we had many conversations. And in those conversations, I found things that I shared with him. And we developed a relationship. Look at them long enough, not only until you see yourself, but until you see that image that they're made in and that likeness. And so, our hope is never in the circumstances. And I think that's where it is. What are you looking at? And no matter where we are, whether it's your finances, whether it's your relationship, or whether it's an addiction, or whether that circumstance is not my hope. Hope is to see through the circumstance to the truth. And that has a lot to do with that identity. But what's the truth in all of this? Truth about myself and truth about the situation, but truth through the circumstance. I guess to summarize a lot, Psalms 23, that we walk through the valley of the shadow of death. And so what? Valley of shadow of death, that's the end. No, we walk through that and we fear no evil, one, because he's with us, but also because of the power of the resurrection. And again, obviously that's my personal perspective on where that hope comes from, is that we serve not only a God who came, who lived a perfect life, died on a cross, but he rose from the grave itself. And that changes everything from our perspective, that eternal perspective that we have. And it allows us to see through into the reality of the circumstance. We look at the circumstance, but we see through that as well.
How inspiring is this to hear someone in public service like you, Judge, talking about how God influences their life and how you can see hope in people even when they're in tough places. This has got to encourage a lot of people today as they're listening to you describe all of this. And I'm so glad Peter asked that question to give you an opportunity to talk about that. As you think about what you're facing at this season of your life, what would you want to say to I want to say particularly to young people who may not have as much hope and confidence in system as you do? And say a word. Would you want to say anything to people who will be listening to us today about helping people to know that there are folks like you in the system who really do want to help? What can you say to them?
With all due respect, it's not about folks like me. It's about folks like them. If they are stirred, if there is a wrestling, if there is an angst there, then what is that? What is the source of that angst? Maybe that's your call. Maybe that's something that you have been or will be equipped to address. Maybe there's a gift that you have. I have the extraordinary pleasure of serving as a senior lecturing fellow at Regent Law School. And so I get to teach at the law school. And not only do I get to teach at the law school, but for the last couple of years at the undergrad, and I have just as much fun. And I don't mean, well, I was surprised. I didn't think I'd have so much fun at the undergraduate level, but I really do. It's transformative, and I get to teach a worldview. It's an introduction to law class, and it's a worldview class in the foundations of law. And I am confident that, and I say, and they say, why do you only say 20%? I said, well, that's generally the way, but 20% of you, I'm confident, are going to be a part of what changes the things that aren't right. And is everything, is there a level of satisfaction that I have that, hey, that everything is completely well and that we don't need any changes or adjustments? Or to the contrary, we're trying to figure this out. Do we have a perfect system? Absolutely not. Is there large room for improvement? Certainly, yes. But you're the answer to that. You're it. We are here to help you. We are here to whatever resources. And I say that, individually, we all serve in different ways, but we all got to the position that we're in because somebody reached out and helped us. We each occupy unique spaces and places. Folks helped us to get here. And there's many people that want to help you advance in your cause. And so you're it. The hope is, again, Christ in you. Christ in you, Colossians 1:27. That's it. That's the hope of glory. It doesn't get any more than that. So it's the Christ in you. And so if you're looking to man, if you're looking to a system and a structure, you're going to have a level of dissatisfaction if you can always find what's wrong. And again, in a relationship, I've been married 37 years to my wonderful wife. If I focus on the negative, we wouldn't be here for 37 years. She definitely wouldn't have stayed with me if she focused on the negative. But there's other things that we focus on, and we focus on the positive and what works. Again, not that we avoid or don't address things that and bring light to things that need to be addressed, but they're the solution, Doc. They're it. That's why I teach. We go from 6 o'clock to 9 o'clock. That's close to my bedtime, Doc. I know you stay up later than me, but I get up at 5. You probably get up early too. But why do I do that? Because I believe I have a confidence in them, and it's not illusory. It's not fabricated, but it's real. It's substantive. This generation, there's a lot of chatter. We need to govern ourselves accordingly, especially folks I just turned 60. And so if you're my age or older, govern yourself accordingly. And we're going to be judged by the way that we make comment and reference to the generations. There's frustration, but we need to speak the truth into this and give them the identity that's true in Christ and not get subject to the world likes to create this generation, that generation. There's a lot of segregation. There's division in power. But anyway, I'll stop. I'm getting on a roll. But we need to speak truth into that. We have is just as much obligation. We've got a baton to hand off. And I think we've fumbled that a bit. And so if you want to get frustrated with that generation, we're to blame because we have not done a good job. We have not been appropriate in handing the baton off. So be careful how you judge. As you judge is as you go. But to that group that's listening, that younger group, I'd share part of my story, and there's a lot more to share. I did not want to go to the University of Richmond. That's where the Lord had me to go. And so it's not my will, but the Lord gives you vision. Vision works. Vision's powerful. He doesn't always give you the plan how to get there, but he guides your steps. That's where we rely on him day by day. Trust in him with all of your heart.
Boy, this is really inspiring just for me to listen to you, Judge. And I want Peter. This has got to. Peter and I talk about. I'm the geezer and he's the geek. So Peter, why don't you just respond how this resonates with you, and then we need to wind down here as well. We could talk a long time about this. Maybe we'll have to have the judge back again someday after this. This is too good to let go. But Peter, what are you thinking?
I only got one thing to say. I heard a great pastor. He loves to repeat this line. He says, "Your potential is my mission." And I just heard that from Judge MacDonald.
That's good.
That is what we say. Your potential is my mission. I think every pastor should be saying that to their congregation. Your potential is my mission, because when God looks at us, he says, your potential is my mission. It's Ephesians 2:10. We are God's workmanship, created in Christ Jesus to do good works, which God prepared for us a long time ago. And it's absolutely wonderful today to be talking to you, Judge. You're discovering the things that God wanted to do in your life and trying to make a difference in other people. That's really what hope is about. And that's Peter and I connected years ago in a mentoring group, and we've been friends for a long time, thinking about the gifts that God puts in each of our lives, different gifts, but we're both trying to fulfill the potential that God has for us. So let me flip it to you, Peter, for any final word that you might have, and then we'll flip it back to the judge for anything he wants to say, and then we'll close in a prayer.
No, I'm just going to throw it to the judge. You got the final word, Your Honor, so go right ahead.
So potential, and potential, and often I don't have it on my desk now, but often talk about the power of a dormant apple seed that I often leave on my desk. What is the potential of that dormant apple seed? It seems powerless. It seems insignificant, and yet it has the capacity for the orchard. In Daniel chapter 2, and I'll close here, it talks about this little stone that was just taken out, this little stone not moved by the hand of man. And that stone crushes the empire. This insignificant little rock crushes the entire. This is Daniel's response to King Nebuchadnezzar's dream. And that's kingdoms that succumb, I believe, and as I've read, to the very kingdom of God. And so wherever you are, I don't care if you're the youngest person watching this or you're the oldest individual watching us today, whatever it has, whatever the Lord has given you, do not minimize its potential in God's hands.
That's just a great word, and it's lived out in Moses, where the Lord said, "What's in your hand, Moses?" So that's the question today: what is in your hand? And whatever it is, that's the potential that God has for you. And He had
And
to
it's
throw
unlimited.
that.
It's unlimited in God's power. You
Yes.
cannot put a limit on it. We're the ones that put. What is the limit of that apple seed? There's no limit to its possibility, unless it doesn't fall to the ground, is buried and dies. I mean, that's the limit. If we remain,
it does have to die. And that staff in Moses' hand, God used it in a powerful way. Well, oh my, I'm inspired. I'm ready to go after it, aren't you, Peter? I mean, after listening to the judge, I'm ready to go and talk about hope to people.
And I know we got to wrap up, but let me just say this one thing, Doc. With all sincerity, I want to thank you for a life well lived. I want to thank you for sowing those seeds into my life, and a part of what I live today is in direct result to those that ministry that I have sat under, and I had the great benefit to be in your presence. And so thank you not only for that, thank you for your leadership in so many different spheres as a man of wisdom, like a son of Issachar, to know the times and to know what to do. Thank you for your faithfulness. Thank you for your integrity. As a young man growing up in the assemblies, you know what I mean when I say thank you for that walk of faithfulness. Thank you for day in and day out being the man that God has called you to be. I've always looked up to you. I've always respected you. And I know many do. But again, on my behalf, with a sincere sense of indebtedness and gratitude, thank you. And thank you for the opportunity today.